Welcome to the ISO Show, dispelling myths and sharing tips for success to improve your business with ISO standards, with your host, Mel Blackmore.
Hello and welcome to the ISO Show podcast on your first ISO assessment and what to expect. So you've worked hard on creating all the necessary policies and procedures, you've systemised your way of working and you've informed the workforce. And you've also carried out internal audits to verify that compliance. So well done, congratulations. But the next step and the final step towards achieving ISO certification is the so-called dreaded assessment. However, with the right approach and preparation, you may actually enjoy your assessment. Hard to believe? Well, hopefully I'll be able to give you a bit of guidance as to what's involved so it doesn't seem quite so daunting. So what should you expect to happen? Well, the assessment, regardless of which ISO standard you're implementing, is split into two stages. The stage 1 assessment is quite simply a document review. This is where the assessor will expect to see all the documented information that the standard requires. So where the standard states you shall provide a documented procedure for internal audits, for example, or you shall provide a documented policy for information security, for example, this is what you need to have available. So the clue is in the wording, shall. So if it says you shall have a documented, that's what they expect to see. So if you're implementing ISO 14001, the assessor would expect to see a documented environmental policy because that's what the standard expects. It's quite straightforward, really. So make sure that you have all of this documentation easily accessible on the day of the assessment. Otherwise, you'll be wasting your time and the assessor's time if the information isn't readily available. And also it can cause suspicion to the assessor because they think that you haven't got it if you can't lay your hands on it. So whether it's online, for example, on SharePoint or on your intranet or on your server, or if it's on a hard copy, like a paper version of a document, it doesn't really matter whether it's hard or soft copy, so long as it's available and meets the requirements of the ISO standard. And also I think it's important to stress that it's available in a format that suits your business. So if all of your processes are driven through software or any particular type of equipment that you use, then that's absolutely fine, as long as you can demonstrate that. If you have a small business, the stage 1 assessment for one ISO standard is likely to be just one day. If you've got a micro business, so that could be less than 5 employees, some certification bodies offer a remote stage 1 assessment, whereby you submit the documentation electronically and they review that documentation remotely. Obviously, if you've got a bigger organisation or if you've got more than one ISO standard that you're being assessed against, then obviously more days need to be allowed for that. And each certification body varies with that, so you're better off getting a quote with an outline of the number of days for the stage 1 and stage 2 assessment. So going back to the stage 1, typically by mid-afternoon, the assessor is likely to be writing up the findings of the assessment. So by the end of the visit, you'll be provided with a stage 1 report, which will outline the scope of certification. So for example, if you've got a plumbing business, you outline the plumbing services on the management system, so that will therefore be printed on your certificate. Okay, so that's the scope of certification. And they'll also identify all the key findings against the clauses within the standard. The report will highlight any positive aspects of the documentation, so where your real strengths are as an organisation. And they'll also raise any minor or major non-conformities, which will need to be addressed prior to the stage 2 assessment. So what's a minor non-conformity? Well, quite simply, this is where there's been a breakdown within that process. It's just not working, or there isn't any evidence there. And a major non-conformity is where there may have been several minor non-conformities within that clause, which could potentially constitute an impact on the service levels or the products that you're providing to your clients. So that is more serious. Now, don't be afraid to ask any questions at all. If some of the terminology that the assessor uses might seem a bit technical, so ISO gobbledygook, your assessor's there to help and will be happy to explain their findings so that you're clear on what they actually mean and the next steps. And never feel like the question that you've got in your mind is a silly one and you're too frightened to ask. Don't worry about this at all. The assessor's there to ensure that you fully understand the findings and will be happy to explain the findings and recommendations in maybe a slightly different way so it makes sense for your business. Most certification bodies also provide opportunities for improvement, which can be really helpful in terms of identifying further improvements that can be made within your business. So the next stage, Stage 2 assessment, can be carried out any time up to 3 months after Stage 1. We'd normally recommend booking this approximately 4 to 6 weeks after the Stage 1 assessment, just to ensure that you keep that momentum going on continued improvement, and also it gives you a bit more time to address any issues or concerns, any opportunities for improvement to your management system that needs to be made. The Stage 2 assessment is carried out to simply demonstrate compliance, that you operate in the way that you say that you do. So in effect, it's like a show and tell. So for example, if you have a procedure in place for training, you need to prove that it's working. How? Show evidence of your records. So a good example would be a company training and skills matrix if you have one, or individual training records. You may have a procedure for internal audits. So simply show your audit schedule for the year and the internal audit reports. It's basically proving how you're running a successful business. This is your opportunity to shine, enjoy and be proud of your company's operations, from leadership right through to operatives. If you've got a brilliant way of working in sales or operations, great, show it off. The assessors will be shadowing you and individual process owners to listen, observe and make notes on how you operate as a business. So at the end of the visit, they'll provide you with a report on their findings, a bit similar to the Stage 1 report that I mentioned, but obviously there's a bit more evidence there. It's not just a document review, it's capturing evidence of compliance against what you say that you do. And all being well, you'll be recommended for certification. Worst case scenario, if there are any major non-conformities at the end of the Stage 2, you'll be given time to provide a corrective action plan. And at Blackmores, I'm delighted to say that we have a 100% success rate. I had to throw that one in, I'm afraid. So we've got 100% success rate at helping our clients to achieve certification to ISO standards. So if the thought of assessment is still a little bit daunting for you, we can be there to give you a helping hand and act as your ISO ambassador to support the management team if needed. Now, I think it's important to stress that following on from the Stage 2 assessment, when they say, congratulations, you've been successfully recommended for certification, you can't announce it at that stage, unfortunately, because there is a due diligence process that the certification body has to go through. That report is submitted to a department that's checked, and it's verified that it meets all of the necessary requirements, and then you'll be notified, and then you will be issued with your certificate. For further information on our ISO support, please visit our website on www.blackmoresuk.com. So for now, it's goodbye from me, and I look forward to catching up with you on the next ISO show.